You're watching the FARC Elite Series, powered by Smash Beer on OEN. Brought to you this week by Calvert Ignitions, always guaranteed to start your day. Here are the highlights of Race 38 of the championship, the Master Spark 200 at the Waterbury Raceway Park in Connecticut. And on the Marlisle pole for the second time this weekend, hometown hero Ryan Matthews, who gains another 5 bonus points on his championship rival Jim Hayes. And Matthews is off to a much better start than in his sprint yesterday. However, Joseph Howard was not off to a good start as he blew up on lap 2. Carter Fitzgerald and Taylor Matthews, the other two Matthews Motorsports cars, would run into trouble in the opening laps as well. Carter Fitzgerald had to drop out of the race while Taylor Matthews fell a couple laps down. This has got to leave Ryan Matthews, the team owner, feeling a little bit nervous as he leads the field back to the first Vickar collision glass caution on lap 10 for Kurt Walker being stopped on the inside of the front stretch, as you probably noticed. The entire field pitted under this caution, and Ryan Matthews would keep the lead, but here comes Leslie Riggs charging into the lead after the B Magazine team made a slight adjustment to that 64 car. I'm sure Ryan Matthews was having flashbacks to the sprint races yesterday. Taylor Brillin, Riggs' M&J teammate, blows up early on, as well as John Hawkes. Taylor Matthews has been off the pace after making an emergency stop, and she's not paying much attention as she takes Lev Azarov in the 82 into the wall. Isaac Leitner is off to a much cleaner start than in his sprint yesterday, where he was involved in a bit of contact with Lucas Sweeney, and he would start exchanging the lead with Leslie Riggs over the next several laps. The 94 and the 64 were very evenly matched, and you can see that the rest of the field isn't really gaining much on them, despite this back and forth that they're doing. But Leslie Riggs would start to run out of patience and gets into the back of the 94. Leitner able to hold her off at the moment, but their battle would be interrupted as Todd Stater gets into the back of Michael Madrigal, collecting Alex Witt and Zach Webster, and bringing out the Vickar collision glass caution again on lap 39. All 4 of these cars would be able to keep going. There would be another round of pit stops under this caution, but the top 4 did not pit, including Isaac Leitner, who keeps the lead. Lev Azarov, Ali Riggs, and Jim Hayes also did not pit, as Isaac Leitner gets a huge start over everyone else, and it also helps that some of the lapped cars are jamming up everyone else. Bob Steffens goes out of the race on lap 45. The Team Thunder car was pretty sickly from the start. He was only running 30th. Kevin Monroe charges into the lead as Leitner gets held up by some lap traffic, but then Kate Taylor slows up in front of the whole field, including Kevin Monroe. Isaac Leitner stuck around the outside and took the lead once again. Lap 52, Tammy Barnton gets into a massive crash as she's hooked into the wall after contact between Scott Dollitz and Michael Madrigal. Neil Miller and Makota Yamada, the Sprint 2 winner, are also collected. Yamada had nowhere to go but into the side of the 90S. There goes Yamada's momentum from yesterday, but they weren't done wrecking yet. Nick Howard, Richard Scott, Britt Tyler, and Taylor Matthews are all collected as well. Taylor Matthews was already off the pace, and that's not going to do her or the field any favors. Luke Ocean was supposed to take the lead as he did not pit under that caution, but his engine had other plans. The rookie goes out of the race after the typical Ocean family luck. That handed the lead back to Isaac Leitner, but Leitner would get shuffled out of line by all of the lapped cars, and I believe that's going to hand the lead over to Ryan Matthews. Several lapped cars in this frame, but Ryan Matthews would not be able to fend off Ralph West in the 33. Ralph West having a great run so far after picking up the FARC Sport Modified win at Boston last week. Nick Azure finds himself in a tight spot. He gets together with Kevin Monroe, and that takes AJ Young and Isaac Leitner up into the wall. Leitner, one of the best cars of the day so far, is going to go out of the race. Nick Azure and AJ Young would continue on with heavy damage. However, Nick Azure's Uncle Frank is faring much better as he picks up the lead after pit stops cycle out. Azure is in position to take the Rookie of the Year lead with Reed Bullett's poor showing in his sprint. However, Azure would be challenged by Libby Bell with a bit of a push from George Bryan in the 81, who is a lap down. But then Bryan would challenge the 16 to try to get back on the lead lap. Azure takes advantage, takes the lead back until Leslie Riggs comes charging forward, and she ends up back in the lead. The 3 championship favorites, Ryan Matthews, Jim Hayes, and Libby Bell, find themselves battling each other in the top 5. Matthews came into this race with a 52-point lead over Jim Hayes and 102 points over Libby Bell. It also helps that he's run more races than anyone else this season, as we see that Kurt Walker has gotten himself back onto the lead lap, trying to chase down teammate Nanami Miura for 13th. Joel Rodriguez and Lev Azarov have also raced their way back onto the lead lap. However, Rodriguez is going to get into the back of Lev Azarov, and Azarov takes a very hard hit into that Armco barrier. Fortunately, Armco has a bit of give as opposed to a concrete wall, so Azarov was able to climb out of that 82 car. Ralph West is going to drop out under this Vickers collision and glass caution. Unfortunate for the 33 team after a very good start. Jim Hayes leads on the restart over Ryan Matthews and Leslie Riggs. Taylor Matthews in the 06 off the pace and jamming up the leaders, but Jim Hayes makes quick work of her before she can help her brother out. But we would get another caution as Alex Witt gets turned into the inside wall by Laura Ocean in the 789. Witt was involved in that 4-car wreck earlier, and he had just worked his way back up into the top 15. Kiki Hitsuno took over the lead under pit stops, but it's clear that she doesn't have the fastest car, as Leslie Riggs quickly makes mincemeat of her. But Riggs would soon be challenged by Jim Hayes, as the top two have pulled away from the field. Rick Tyler and Scott Dollitz are both a lap down. Whenever the M&J cars have held up, Jim Hayes has always been nearby. He's started on the front row with Kevin Monroe several times this season, and has frequently been battling for the win with him. Ryan Matthews currently holding station in 6th, as Leslie Riggs gets by the 77 to take the lead once again. But the action would be interrupted for the 7th time. Caitlin Richler in the 84 blows up and then gets spun around by Todd Stater. She sits right in the middle of traffic, but fortunately everybody is able to sneak by. You saw several cars just barely scraping the wall trying to keep off the 84. Brian George in the Doppelgang car goes out of the race after running a lap down for most of the event. Jim Hayes took the lead once again after another round of pit stops, but the leaders have several lapped cars to deal with, including Frank Asher, who had to make an emergency stop earlier, but we missed it, although he gets around the leaders to get back onto the lead lap as there's trouble. Allie Riggs and Zach Webster get together off of turn 2, sending several cars into the wall, including Ryan Matthews. Richard Scott has nowhere to go and piles into the 61, and that's going to take your points leader out of the race. However, there are about 20 cars out of the race already at this point, including the 6 that are going to go out because of this wreck. Ryan Matthews would finish 21st, so it could be much worse, but he'll be sitting on the sidelines nervously watching Jim Hayes. We've got quite a few cars getting back on the lead lap. Frank Asher, Laura Ocean, and Nick Howard amongst them. Jim Hayes got a little bit of right side damage in that wreck, but it doesn't look like it'll affect him too much as he saw Brian George getting back onto the track. I thought that problem was terminal, but I guess not. Zach Webster led on the restart. He had a hand in starting that wreck as Allie Riggs came down, trying to get around the 06 of Taylor Matthews. We'll have to see what the court of public opinion thinks about that. But Webster gets shuffled out of line by some of the lapped cars. Jason Bates takes advantage and moves into the lead. And then there's contact between Cade Taylor and Michael Madrigal. Taylor comes spinning up into the path of Frank Asher. Jim Hayes and Nick Howard are also collected. Taylor, Asher, and Howard are all going to go out, but Jim Hayes will continue to soldier on after getting himself involved in another mess. After another round of pit stops, Leslie Riggs finds herself back in the lead. Bigsby Foot second, and Joel Rodriguez has worked his way up to third in the Bjorn Green racing car, and there goes Rodriguez charging down the inside, and he's going to sweep into the lead, passing 2 cars in one corner. Rodriguez and Laura Ocean are now starting to show their hands. Laura Ocean has worked her way up to 5th place. The rookie is looking for a 2nd win this season, as is Jason Bates, who got shuffled back a few spots after pit stops, but now he makes his way back up towards the front with a move on Leslie Riggs for 2nd. Michael Madrigal goes out of the race with an engine failure. He had made his way up to 15th, despite being lapped down for most of the race. Nanami Miura takes the lead after Taylor Matthews got in Joel Rodriguez's way, and now the fight for the top spot gets a little bit more lively. Rodriguez getting very aggressive with the 41 of Zach Webster, but Webster keeps his foot in it and moves into the lead himself. The purple 77 of Jim Hayes is still very fast, despite the battle scars on that Lennard. Leslie Riggs finds herself back in the lead on lap 157. Libby Bell gives chase. Jason Bates and Bigsby Foot fight for 3rd. Zach Webster has a tire go down, and he's going to spend a couple laps in the pit lane. He would eventually finish 12th. And as this green flag run went on, Leslie Riggs would continue to build up her lead, and the tire degradation would start to rear its ugly head. Here's Joel Rodriguez. He was leading about 30 laps ago, and now he's gone a lap down as he's completely lost the handling on that 92 car. Allie Riggs would be her sister's next victim. The 19 has been nowhere near the front all day, but Allie Riggs has slowly worked her way up into the top 15, despite being involved in the start of that big wreck. 64 puts her a lap down. Even though Leslie Riggs has built up that huge lead, Jim Hayes is now the fastest car on the track with under 15 laps to go. He's been about 0.2 a lap faster than the 64, as Leslie Riggs now starts to lose the handling on her SAR. The 19 is able to keep up with her. However, this development would be interrupted by Todd Stater hitting the wall and coming back down across the path of Jason Bates. This final Vickers collision glass caution with about 8 laps to go is going to bring everybody back together. You see a lot of damage on the 2 car. Bates would eventually pull into the pits and drop out of the race. The leaders are going to bypass the pit lane despite the condition of everyone's tires. There would be absolutely no takers on pit road, except for Jason Bates right there, but again, he's going to drop out of the race. The race will restart with 3 laps remaining. Leslie Riggs has the lapped cars of Allie Riggs and Kiki Hitsuno in between her and second place Jim Hayes, who again was the fastest car on the track before that caution came out. But Leslie Riggs quickly pulls out to a very big lead as the 77 is trapped behind the 19. Perhaps Allie Riggs is trying to give her sister a bit of help, but Jim Hayes makes the move to the inside of the 19 and is going to try to get away from her as he holds off Bigsby Foot. You saw that Foot got a huge charge into turn 3, but had to let up as he did not have any grip down there. Now on board with the 77, and you can definitely see the 64 getting bigger in his sights. Hayes is able to keep his car on the bottom. 1 lap to go now. Leslie Riggs trying to win her first points race of the year. She does have that all-star win, but Hayes is growing very big, very quickly in her mirror. Hayes now right on the back bumper of the 64 as Riggs cannot keep it on the bottom of the track. Hayes goes to the inside, Riggs hits the wall, and Hayes takes the Master Spark 200 with a last corner pass. Hayes becomes the first driver to win 3 races this season, and he maximizes his points haul against Ryan Matthews, who keeps the points lead, but now he only leads by 25 points over Jim Hayes. Libby Bell also closes up the gap between herself and Matthews, but Kevin Monroe falls back a little bit. With 4 race weekends left in the season, I believe that the top 3 are the only ones with a realistic shot at the title. However, we've seen a lot of shuffling through the point standings thanks to the new 3-race format. And just like what we saw with Laura Cyrus, if you have a bad streak near the top of the standings, you are going to get eaten alive. And now we have a new Rookie of the Year leader. Frank Azure now leads with 0.8 of a position over Vincenzo Focusato. Reed Bullitt, after his bad finish in the sprint, gets punted back to 3rd. So Tom Delgado Racing, with Jim Hayes second in points, has a very realistic shot at grabbing 2 titles this season.